All right, today's the day, and we have something a little bit different in our introduction here. We are sitting in the Arete for a couple of reasons. I needed somewhere comfortable to sit without too much junk in the background. So here we are sitting inside. And people have been worried after our last videos that the tunnel in here is just too big and too wide. But as you can see, I seem to fit. If you have a little bit wider hips than me, you might not. But anyway, the passenger, they have 2 inches extra room, so they'll have 2 inches of extra space to make sure they fit. But we seem to be comfortable in here. I am sitting probably 3/4 of an inch lower than I will be when the seat cushions are in here. But I seem to have enough clearance. No doors on here, but I know with a board across there, it seemed to fit. And everything seems to be okay moving forward. Nice to get in here and kind of get a picture of what the ergonomic situation is going to be and what we're going to be working on. I have also been a little bit difficult week in getting things ready for YouTube. Now, YouTube is a curious thing when you're trying to build projects on YouTube. There are 2 difficulties. The one being setting up camera equipment and doing the recording where you're trying to do work. And you've seen some of those problems in being that I do have a nice little single monopod that's on rollers that moves around the shop. And when I set that up, I can usually get it pointed at where I'm going to work. But a lot of times, as you've seen, I get in there working and I am in the way of the camera. But instead of me trying to spend all my time rearranging the camera equipment, it's easier for me to just get the job done. And so I'm sorry that you get blocked out of some of that view. Another thing that's really difficult with doing YouTube and working on a project is that you kind of get into a different mindset. That mindset being that you feel like you've got to get on a schedule, you got to keep going, you got to produce those videos. And well, sometimes the work just does not cooperate. And this has been one of those weeks. Seems to be a bunch of those weeks ever lately. Anyway, this week, a couple of things. I thought I'm going to work on some of the mechanical on the front end. And so I have a piece of sheet metal that we have cut to make a fan shroud. But I would go to install that, and I realized I need a little bit of a 20-degree bend so it fits down against the bottom frame rail on the crash structure up there. And I tried to bend that on my little cheapy sheet metal brake, and I could not do it. That 1/8 of an inch sheet metal, 1/8 of an inch aluminum, it's about 26 inches wide, and I just could not bend it. So I had to take it back to the water jet cutters. They have a press brake there, and wait for them to go ahead and break that for me. So didn't get that done. So I thought I'd move on and do the lower, I guess the upper control arms that I'm redoing. And I would work on those, but when I got into looking at the steel that had been water jet cut for me, I noticed a couple of big gouges or big scratches in the metal. Looking at it, I thought maybe I could just sand it out, but a little too deep for that, and I was worried to have some kind of stress point in suspension pieces, so I decided to just have them recut those as well. And I don't know if I gave them metal or if they had the metal that was scratched up, but anyway, they were kind enough to just go ahead and recut those pieces. We had those back, but not in time for me to actually create a video out of it. And so one of the things I thought, well, I can just slip in an Arete, or not an Arete, but a Leviathan video, because we got in a new 11.5 inch differential axle and went to go take that thing apart so that we could put in a new set of gear set that we have and ARB lockers. But the pinion nut would not come free. And after battling for hours with that thing, we finally was able to break it free by using some heat, some penetrating oil, impact wrench, leverage, and some elbow grease. But once that was off, we found that the yoke assembly was also stuck on there and unable to get it off. Fought with it for a long time. I have one of those little wedge bearing pullers, tried it, tried pounding on it, tried some leverage, just nothing was going to get that thing free. So like every good mechanic does, you need a good tool to take it off, but you're not willing to spend a lot of money because it's a rare item you're going to use. Harbor Freight. So 4 hours later, because I decided to take my wife to dinner on that trip, 4 hours later I had a hydraulic pulley puller. I did have to spend some time modifying it to work on this thing as well. But here you can see that it actually worked quite well. It is a fantastic piece of equipment. Again, Harbor Freight saves the day. Very powerful thing, pulled it off just as if it was never stuck in the beginning. Anyway, that never resulted in creating a video out of any of those things. Just little things get done around here, but they all just never quite seem to get completed. And I hate to put together a video that's just a compilation of little pieces of things that never get finished. I try to wait till I have something that's gone through the whole story arc, or at least have some congruity of a beginning and an end. But those were very few. The only thing we did have is I did also get back from the water jet cutters a couple of pieces to build hinges to lift the front clamshell. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. Just a short video looking at assembling the front hinges. Let's go take a look. Now what we're going to build here is a parallel component scissor hinge. This is similar to those you'll find on a lot of hoods, especially truck hoods, that will lift the hinge as it starts to move forward, making sure that it lifts away from its seated position rather than running into any of the seals or something like that, or sliding along the seals before it opens. So these were just a 1/4-inch piece of aluminum cut into these component pieces, and I will just be assembling them with some M6 metric machine screws. Just going to assemble them loosely here. Later on I'll go back and put Loctite on them and some washers, make sure that they hold their position while the vibration of the vehicle. But we get the main components here put together, and then we're going to have one set of pieces that has to be welded to make a 90-degree angle. That'll be the piece that bolts to the bonnet itself. We'll just set it up with a nice groove so we get a good deep penetrating weld on this thing. Now the weld will actually have to get machined off. That's why I'm saying it needs a deep penetrating weld here, because that is a flat surface that needs to go right up against the bottom side of our clamshell, the bonnet. I'll put one weld on the back side just to make sure that it never gets into a hinging moment and fatigue bend our weld here, because like you see, a lot of our weld is going to disappear. We're just going to machine it down and get it back to a nice smooth flat surface. Once we get that machining all done, we'll take it back over and get this thing assembled in its pieces. Same thing, just throw in those last two machine screws, put some nuts on there so we can try this thing. You'll see also a little earlobe that sticks down on there. That may be for a strut that gets added on later on. But that's the action of our hinge. And let's go show you where it's going to fit on the vehicle. And if you remember these crash structures we built in another video, there is a place right here that has a good solid surface that we are going to bolt this thing right to. And then it will hinge up just like this. Swing back down, those parallel pieces will flatten against each other, and that will be a seated position. Here it is from the bottom side with the hood on. That is where it'll fit and sit, and it is there ready to go. Well, there you go. We have some hinges done, ready to put into our front crash structure, hold that front clamshell open. We do have to jump in there and do some more lamination on the front of this tub so that we can put the bolt holes in for that subframe to hook on so that the spacing is correct to put those hinges to be able to adjust those. But we are moving on into that realm of territory. And here we are able to move on and work in here again. The tunnel is here. I do have space. If you did not see the video where all these complaints came for about this tunnel being too wide, I'm going to put a link right up here. You can go watch the installation of this tunnel. I'm also going to put a little video over here. It links you back to the very beginning of the Arete project in case you're new to the channel. You want to jump back and start from the beginning. That link will be right there. Anyway, hope you also subscribe if you're not. Jump down, ring the little icon bell to get notifications of these videos when they come up. But anyway, thanks for stopping by today. Come back, see us again.